Hi everybody, this is Hero from the Birds back with another Shadowlands video, and in this video I'd like to take a look at the world first race from the perspective of Holy Paladins. The reason I'm bringing this up is there are some interesting choices being made both on the talent side and the covenant side that I'd like to cover just as a way of talking again about all the tools that are available to you as a Holy Paladin and why you shouldn't feel compelled to stick to some cookie cutter approach. And specifically I'm going to follow some of the choices being made by Limit's Holy Paladins as they work through the General's encounter and talk about that as a springboard for thinking of the choices you have as a raider. The first major choice being made, of course, is the movement towards Venthyr away from Kyrian, and this is a choice that was made early on for their Mythic Prog, and there's a very specific reason for it. Obviously, Divine Toll is an excellent ability. It's good for multiclassing, it's excellent in Mythic Plus, but it's struggled to be used appropriately in raid settings because it's a 1 minute CD that you feel compelled to use, and yet it's always difficult to maximize value from it. The reason for this is pretty straightforward. As Holy Paladin, we're always building a lot of holy power, and it's very unlikely that you will find yourself lining up a 0 holy power moment with the cooldown of your Divine Toll. So you'll have 2 holy power ready to go, Divine Toll comes off, everyone's dying, so you feel compelled to use it, but you don't really want to waste the holy power. This awkward dynamic. Or you'll be at 5 holy power, you have to spend all 5 of it, which requires 3 whole GCDs before you can make use of it. The other problem, of course, is it comes off CD and there's no damage going out. So you're holding this CD for 10, 15, 20 seconds without finding that good moment to use it that doesn't include a whole bunch of overhealing. That's part of the reason that makes Divine Toll kind of tough to use in raids. And so they've moved over to using the Venthyr ability Ashen Hallow, which essentially becomes a sort of mini raid CD, and when paired with a Paladin's Wings, offers just an insane amount of raid healing. On top of this, it adds a lot of damage, priority damage specifically, because it scales with targets both on the healing side and on the damage side. So if there's only one boss, it's doing a truckload of damage. This is in combination, of course, with the conduit that goes alongside Ashen Hallow, Hallowed Discernment, and when you scale this up, you can say I only have a 145 level of this. It contributes a ton of healing on top. It's really been interesting to watch the choices being made by these Holy Paladins in World First races. Ashen Hallow gets put in as a healing raid CD to cover different situations, and it seems like they've kept that theme for their Holy Paladins in almost all of the content. They've chosen to maximize the burst CDs in all of the rows and to avoid the kind of Glimmer style build that people have tended to champion in all of the different communities. What do I mean by this? Well, the choice of Light's Hammer, for example, over Crusader's Might is a really serious one. Now, Light's Hammer, we always have known, has had a really good coefficient. It's excellent for stacked healing. And this makes it incredible for World First raiding, where you can really coordinate people's position. For normal and LFR raiders, people are often running all over the place, so you don't get very much value out of this. For heroic raiders, and those of us doing kind of heroic and mythic content, sometimes it's more difficult to get everyone lined up so that this ability has good use. But nevertheless, when you can guarantee a stacked group, there's a lot of stacked AoE going out for short bursts, this is an excellent CD to use. But the disadvantage is you lose access to Crusader's Might, which is the cornerstone of the Glimmer of Light playstyle. One thing we've started to notice, as you get a lot more haste, so here I'm sitting at about 31% with my food buff, you start to run into this issue of how to juggle and manage your Crusader Strike and Holy Shock CD usage. At 31% haste, my Holy Shock CD is like 5.7 seconds. That means that I don't have very much time to move between Holy Shocks, Crusader Strikes, and spending with Light of the Dawn or Word of Glory. It's a troubling thing because it puts a lot of pressure on the healer to always be juggling and managing these CDs. Now, it can have a lot of great effect. More glimmers out, more healing from Holy Shocks, it's all good stuff. But the problem is, it's all kind of gradual throughput. And if you screw up the rotation, if you double Crusader Strike and over CDR your Holy Shocks, or if you have to hold Holy Shock because you've built too much Holy Power and need to spend it, you can run into some issues. This is especially true because of another interesting choice that the World First groups have used, Holy Avenger. Now, Holy Avenger has a lot of problems and creates a lot of tension for the Glimmer of Light build. In a Mythic Plus scenario, this isn't as big a deal because you often need Holy Avenger to get through really high packs. You need this burst CD, so overlapping isn't as big a deal. But in raids, you really want to maximize, for the Glimmer build, your uses of Holy Shock and Crusader Strike. And what happens with Holy Avenger is you compress too many GCDs into the same space. You're trying to get Holy Shock, Light of Dawn, Crusader Strike, Light of Dawn off, but your Holy Shock comes back off CD at awkward times. You have to manage it with Crusader Strikes, which are also cooling it down. It just throws a wrench into the entire thing. Now, it's not that big of a deal, obviously, that you waste some Holy Shocks while something like Holy Avenger is running. But it is suboptimal, and we found that with really high haste, you can actually get away with things like Light's Hammer and just allow Holy Shock to cool down on its own. You can still build with your Crusader Strike, that's totally fine, but you don't have quite the same pressure to manage and juggle these things. Finally, the movement away from Glimmer of Light entirely toward Beacon of Faith has some interesting implications. We've always known that Beacon of Faith is pretty good in a raid setting. You can have it on 2 tanks, or as some of, I think, Limit's Paladins have been doing. They've been tossing a beacon onto an injured or vulnerable target, like a Balanced Druid, for example. These skills synergize really well with some of the punchy throughput of Light's Hammer, Holy Avenger, and Ashen Hallow. And in fact, Beacon of Faith also works really well with Divine Toll if you're still playing Kyrian. Glimmer of Light actually overheals quite a lot, and it doesn't provide the same throughput into your beacon target. It only is 25% effective. Beacon of Faith is a bit of a sleeper talent because the tooltip is slightly misleading. It's 30% off the 50% value, meaning that your normal beacon provides 50% healing, and your Beacon of Virtue offers 4 targets 50% healing, but Beacon of Faith is going to give you 35% on 2 targets. One of the things that's excellent about this is it reduces substantially the overhealing caused by Beacon. You've split it into 2, and now these 2 targets, especially the 2 tanks, are far less likely to have overhealing. And that's actually the same theme for Glimmer of Light. When you're playing this erratic Holy Shock build and you're trying to bounce back and forth and keep people up, Glimmer of Light often overheals. It's not a burst healing cooldown, it's more about sustained throughput. And although sustained throughput is fine, in this raid, these World First Raiders have decided that we need our Paladins specifically to be inclined more towards these burst CDs. Now, before we say, well, that's just World First Raiders, what can we expect? I mean, they're pushing high content, they need tons of DR, they've got all these tools mapped out. My raid's nothing like that. I just want to say to you, actually, in fact, it's more likely that the World First Raiders would be able to effectively make use of Glimmer of Light, Crusader's Might, without screwing it up. And in fact, we should take their choices as a signal of maybe a better way to organize your raid and your raid CDs. Light's Hammer, Holy Avenger, Beacon of Faith are a little bit more forgiving for you as a healer. They're slightly more reactive tools that you can get a handle on. And in fact, even if you run Resto Druids and Mistweaver Monks and Holy Priests, which are traditionally thought of as just powerhouse throughput healers, but perhaps not really good enough for the cutting-edge World First rating, these kinds of tools help to back those people up. And in fact, they might be a little more accessible for even you as a Holy Paladin. Don't get me wrong, I think everyone should give Glimmer of Light a try. But don't kid yourself into thinking that you're some super person who can get it right every time. It's very punishing to try and play Crusader's Might, Glimmer of Light with high haste. It feels good, but you often are waiting or have these little moments when you're not sure what to press, or you're away from the boss and you can't generate holy power. It can be very awkward. So just be aware that even the best of the best are thinking of other kinds of tools to use. And I just thought it was really nice to check in and see what specifically Limit's guilds are doing, but I think a lot of the Holy Paladins in these World First Raiders are up to. We can take from them some of the tools that we could then apply for our own raids. So hopefully I'll have some more content for you guys. I'm going to check out a little bit of the Venthyr Paladin build, play around with some of these other things as I've been doing, and report back to you and show you guys how you could build this into your own comps and think about organizing your raid. Because at the end of the day, guys, healing in a raid is about your entire healer core, knowing what tools are available, how you can manage them appropriately. If you're in a pug raid, people are just blasting heals. They don't care about you. They don't really care about mechanics. They care about getting a Warcraft log score, just some weird number on some website somewhere on the internet. But if you actually want to be successful, like some of these World First Raiders, you'll think a little bit outside the box. So it's been fun to follow along what they're doing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have questions about your comp or questions about the talent choices, thoughts that you have about using things like Avenging Crusader, where that might be good, Sanctified Wrath, if that's even viable with high haste, these kinds of things, Holy Prism, Rule of Law, and how to use these things, please leave comments below. I'd love to address them and help you to see what kind of tools are available to you for raiding. Thanks. We'll catch you again next time.